On to Nigeria now. So let's ask a fairly straightforward question. Why does a country with the 9th largest proven gas reserves on the planet have such a massive, crippling electricity deficit? On Sunday, for example, 560 megawatts of gas generation capacity was offline because there wasn't any gas, and the country's sector regulator estimated losses attributable to that lack of power at $3.5 million on that day alone. And remember, that figure doesn't take into account the enormous amount of gas wasted through gas flaring in that country. Earlier on, I debated this subject with the CEO and chairman of an oil, gas and power firm based in Nigeria, Genesis Energy Holdings. I started by asking him how Nigeria's recession affected his company's operations.
For us, what we've had to do is to reduce our cost of operation. It was difficult, challenging, sometimes finding the foreign exchange to import spare parts for our power plant and for operations. But the central bank of the country, in my opinion, has done excellently well in micromanaging this process. And today, given a combination of increased sale of increased production of oil, much higher price of crude oil globally, the country has a better supply of foreign exchange, particularly United States dollars. And so over the past 2 quarters, Genesis has been able to significantly meet up all our foreign exchange requirements.
If I may just jump in there, the question of Nigeria's foreign currency policy, especially the fact that the CBN has stuck very strongly to not floating the naira, instead of introducing this gated window for exporters and investors. Do you think in the long run, though, that at some point the naira will eventually have to float?
It's difficult to answer that because remember, this is, so I can speak as an economist, but this is more of a political decision. So the country has decided to what I would call partial float, of the economy. So we have 2 alternative markets. You have the official market and then you have the alternative market. And the central bank has created a 3rd tier by having the import-export window to enable willing buyer, willing seller. So if you look at that import-export window, for example, you may well say that the naira is actually effectively floating in that particular window. So today, if I have my dollar to sell, or if I want to bring in equity into the country, I could effectively match it with a gentleman or a company or an industry that requires naira. But in terms of having a 100% float, again, it's a political decision. Where do I see that happening over the next 5 years? I would say it's a function of how well will the economy keep on recovering, recording more positive growth in manufacturing, in the oil sector. Now, so long as we have this positive growth, it becomes less about floating the naira. It now becomes more about monetary policies that the government of the day feels is better suited for the country.
Right then. Let's talk about the power sector in particular. There's one thing that always strikes me every time I look at Nigeria's entire power sector. There are persistent constraints on gas supply to power plants, and there are also issues just in getting the power from the power plants into the hands of a consumer. These are problems that have been there for years now. Why haven't they been decisively solved?
Again, for gas supply to come onshore, and Nigeria is described as a country with some oil and a lot of gas. So apparently we're floating on a sea of gas. But, gas development, gas infrastructure costs a lot of money. You need to have credible off-taker on the downstream side. So credible off-taker in the power industry, you need to have a credible off-taker in the chemical industry, petrochemical industry. So my sense is that whilst it's important to encourage the oil majors, the independent, to focus on producing gas and bringing it onshore, but they need to find bankable projects